Uh, Now you can see me better. I would like to speak right here about the content of Orthodox Corpus Canonum, which is also known according to a collection where it can be found as Noma Canon in 14 titles, right? So Noma Canon, this is an amalgamated Greek word, which is a combination of nomos and canon. So those two words, they are responsible for imperial laws, nomos, and canon is for ecclesiastical laws. And we are dealing, as I mentioned in my first installment, with the material that is spread over few centuries. So this material is spread over a few centuries, and it's definitely will be assumptuous to think that it was exactly designed for instance, for the place where I'm right now, for the central part of New York State in the 21st century. So I think you would do unfair service to the fathers of canons that you would sort of think that they really had in mind that they will be used in so dramatically different circumstances. But having said that, those canons, they were intended for the entire Byzantine Empire. So canons of the council, they are more universal than writings of fathers like Saint Basil, who is associated with 92 canons. He wrote responding to particular queries that were submitted to him. Those queries were either exclusively or mostly submitted by Saint Amphilochius of Iconium, which is, as you know now, Konya. This is a heartland of Turkey, right? But it was Iconium. That was a capital of the Seljuk Sultanate. So it's holy city for the Turks now. And all those titles are connected with Byzantium that we come across. That was part of the also heartland of the Byzantine Empire, Eastern Roman Empire. So ideally, we should have in front of us those questions that were submitted to see how he rendered his questions. And I don't think it's also would be fair to expect that St. Basil was writing those responses with the idea that they will be utilized by people throughout the globe, because he was responding to a particular question, particular questions. And now we are dealing with canons in chronological order, not like they used to be treated according to thematical organization. And we are starting with canons of Holy Apostles. This is a Syriac monument, canonical monument produced in the 4th century in very different milieu than other canons. In this sense, it's kind of similar to the canons from the Council of Carthage, because they also were produced in quite unusual milieu, particularly in North Africa. So those canons, I really like them because they are very, there's a lot of common sense. Like, for instance, they explain that somebody cannot be a priest, or I guess priest or bishop, because this person is divorced. So if this person was divorced, then he wasn't not in position to maintain his own household. So how come you would promote him? So very sensible. So then there are canons of the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, 3 to 5, the 20 of them, right? And they deal with moral issues, with various regulations, and of course canons. They all deal with administrative and disciplinary issues. You can easily divide them into two categories: administrative and administrative and disciplinary. So that's basically how they break down, because for everything else there are ori plural from oros, like dogmatical definitions, doctrinal definitions, which were adopted by councils. And I haven't mentioned enough maybe about apostolic canon. So they deal with baptism of heretics, with duties of clergymen, with accusations against clergymen, basically norms for ordination. So, like, I mean, what kind of conditions, what kind of inabilities may prevent from ordination. So now I'm back to the second Ecumenical Council, 381, the Council of Constantinople. So it deals with various grades of reception into the church, right? Also questions of taking a clergyman to the court. And then the next one will be Council of Ephesus, another Ecumenical Council, the third one. And it's also regarding reception into the church, right? It's also regarding diocesan and parish activities of clergymen. So the fourth one, Council of Chalcedon, and the fourth one is dealing with monasticism, because it's already a pressing issue by this time, 451. So it's also mentioned the bishop councils, again mentioned procedure for juridical procedure of the trial against clergymen. And there are, of course, very famous Canon 28, which is now extendedly interpreted by the Ecumenical Throne. So the Russian Church does not agree on this interpretation. And that's how this council is known. So then the Sixth Ecumenical Council, right, because the fifth and sixth councils didn't really produce any canons. So the council in Trula, which are covered chambers in Constantinople, where this council took place under Emperor Justinian II, before his nose was slit and he ran away to the Crimea. So Justinian II, he presided over this council, and that's something that also worth to mention, that no emperors, no ecumenical councils, because ecumenical councils is purely imperial phenomena, right? Therefore, I don't think it's like there were only apostles. No one can, restore. I mean, in the Orthodox Church at least, no one can restore this class. But it's the same true for ecumenical councils. All ecumenical councils are affiliated with the empire, with the Roman Empire. So, well, okay, maybe it can be redefined, but this council in Trula is very, very important. Maybe even the more important than all other councils. So it's kind of in limbo, because the West was reluctant about endorsing this. And it was very important because during the first millennium, West was custodian of Orthodoxy and not East. So and that's how Pope of Rome became such a prominent figure, because Easterners, they helped significantly to build this authority by appealing to his status. So this council in Trula produced 102 canons, and I would say that you should start reading those canons from the very end, because 102, the last canon, is very good. It's very good. I mentioned to you yesterday about those, the philosophical wisdoms that you can find, those philosophies that you can find in canons. This is a striking example, because this canon explains what economy is and what economy is not. So make sure that you read it, because I'm going to check on you when we'll be meeting on February 5th. So I will know who of you were naughty and who were good. Okay, so make sure that you take care of this, right? So those canons are amazing. Council and Trullo are amazing. I don't know where to start. Really deserves a special lecture. And there is very good treaty was published in 1992, marking for 1,300 anniversary of this council, right? So there is this Pontifical Institute in Rome published canons with parallel edition in Greek, in Latin, with English translation. A number of articles were included, and this edition was done by Michael Featherstone, a Byzantinist. So, and what else to say? Then we are dealing with, as a Seven Ecumenical Council, it's really different church, because we should keep in mind that Council in Trullo was pre-iconoclastic, and now we are dealing with post-iconoclastic. That's important for what we will be doing in this class, because this Seven Ecumenical Council is the Seven Ecumenical Council already qualified iconoclasm as heresy, whereas it wasn't that clear. Because you can see various references in the Council and Trullo that iconoclasts use, that Christ cannot be depicted in particular ways. So they try to limit a number of images that were canonical. So, and now we are dealing with councils of lesser weight class, which are local councils. Okay, so. In this sense, the Council of Ancyrus, 314, you can see it's very early councils. Those fathers, they were confessors of the faith. They were not really church bureaucrats or people who kind of benefited from their status. They were people who were straight fresh from their, persecuted communities, who just a couple of years after the Edict of Milan. So in Ankara, again, it's modern day capital of Turkey. I'm probably not the same place, but in the same area, right? So again, another sort of idea. It's 314, 25 canons, dealing with abortions, dealing with mixed marriages. Dealing with apostasy from the faith. So kind of you see sort of dealing with Christian community living in non-Christian world, something like we do now. So then there is Council of Nea Caesarea, 315, 15 canons. It's dealing with catechumens and dealing with rules of conduct for clergy. It deals with matrimonial complexities. So and then the next council is Council of Gangra, 340. There are 21 canons, and this is very straightforward, very easy to remember. I'm sure you will remember it unless you're already familiar. I'm sure some of you are definitely familiar who studied with me before. So this Council of Gangra is dealing with excesses of ascetics. It's ongoing struggle, sort of, in church, between ascetics, special men of God, and church officers like bishops, and sort of charismatic movement of withdrawing into the desert didn't require any specific permission from bishops. Kind of, you see, like Saint Anthony the Great, Saint Mary of Egypt, she didn't really look in Jerusalem when for a bishop to get a blessing, to get permission, to have a paper, and so. And that's understandable, because she was focused on her personal repentance, on her personal transformation. And those people, they were often not integrated into the church. And this is ongoing pattern between monasticism and bishops until nowadays. So, and then, there are canons, for instance, of the council, 9th century council, so-called First and Second Council, like a number of them specifically integrating monastic into the church structure. That monastics would be under particular bishops. They would acknowledge existence of this particular bishop, so they would be part of this church structure, not sort of idiorhythmic on its own hermetic style, when basically, like you see again with Saint Mary, if you think about her vita, her life, you would see that she commuted twice, and it's great because this is the demonstration that she was in communion with the church, because you can see how you can be a hermit, and maybe you would have sort of very different, how to say, relationship, and you might feel, and of course a problem, that you don't have to commune because you kind of having revelations, you having various your as you believe your own personal sort of direct line with God, so you don't really need to commune, and that was a temptation, right? So this is Council of Gangor, and then next one is Council of Antioch. So another territory, which is what is this on Turkey-Iraq border, or Syrian border. And its council deals with Paschalion, with schisms, with receiving pilgrims, right? So with church properties, and Council of Sardica, 344, and Sardica, it's around modern day Sofia in Bulgaria. So it was between Western Eastern Empire, and this council dealt with Saint Athanasius the Great, because there were many complaints about him. Even the later the great martyr Mercurius, he was a prefect of Egypt. He was sent to investigate Saint Athanasius. Okay, so, but Saint Athanasius at the end of the day became a universal teacher. So now the Council of Laodicea, 60 canons, again reception into the church, regarding meals following liturgy, like agape, right? How clergy are chosen, regarding how Eucharist should be distributed, regarding singing in church, regarding liturgy. So it seems like important council for liturgiologists. And then Council of Carthage, very different animal, very different language, very different structure of this. It's like minutes. There are names of bishops. The bishops are not, they don't name anywhere. Sort of, you're like dealing like somebody, pull out those pages from a binder, and they have particular, it's like a minute of discussions, kind of like our bishops, Rockford bishops meet. Okay, so there are 147 canons, and now we are having more fun because there are different translations. For instance, what translation was really proved in Council number 2, something that escaped me. Council number 2 of the Council in Trula is the source for Orthodox canonical tradition, because this Council number 2 lists all canons and all councils that form the core of our tradition. So the Council of Carthage is there, 419, but if you read this translation in the Radar this translation of the Radar of Canon 68, that's what I meant to say. So, and if you would read this translation in Nicene and post-Nicene fathers, right, you would see they're somehow different. Some people argue, like somebody's arguing with me right now regarding my article, that I used a faulty translation of. I said 68, right? Yes, 68. That's right. So, but nevertheless, I think essentially it doesn't really change the meaning, but there are good grounds for discussion. So you better use a couple of texts. You use Nicene and post-Nicene fathers. You use the Radar, right? And even sometimes you can take Pedalion, right? And Pedalion doesn't need to be introduced. It's Saint Codimus the Agiorite, his very progressive canonical work, part of his general revival work to revitalize church life, to make people more responsible Christians. So, and you can really sort of use this as kind of, you can see what words they use, what Greek words they use. You can look for translation. You can find additional meanings. You can do it. So it's not really scary stuff. I mean, it's doable for you. All of you had New Testament Greek, so don't be scary of this, okay? You can look it up and kind of see, all right, so I can see how it is in Greek. So I understand, okay, or kind of know this word is not there. So you should be able to identify those differences. Okay, so now there is First and Second Council, which is my council because I wrote my dissertation on this. So I hope to talk more about it when time comes. And then council canons of Holy Fathers. So they're kind of the lowest class. It's okay to consider them of lesser weight class because that's how they are. So and Saint Dionysius, this is even late 3rd century, pre-Christian, right? I mean, I'm sorry, pre-Byzantine. And then we are dealing with Peter, Archbishop of Alexandria, right? And he's dealing also with all his canons are dealt with Christians during persecutions, sort of lapsed Christians, martyrs, and so on. Then Athanasius the Great, his canons, right? And then St. Basil. Three epistles of St. Basil are like relics. They are taken apart in canons, so and made 92 canons. But he wrote 3 epistles, and then there are also excerpts from his other works. Okay, so and then we have Saint Gregory of Nyssa. So we have Saint Gregory theologian, and we have Amphilochius, right? And the same Amphilochius who wrote to Saint Basil, and he indicates what books are considered canonical. And then we are dealing with Timothy of Alexandria. I found sort of peculiar. I'm not saying Saint Timothy of Alexandria because he was a bitter opponent of Saint Gregory the theologian at the Second Ecumenical Council. So the church called him the Blessed Timothy of Alexandria because you remember those two sees of Alexandria and Constantinople. They competed. Alexandria was an ancient see, apostolic see, and Constantinople cannot claim apostolicity, right? You can say there were letters to Galatians and so on, but still, it's not really. We don't know of affiliation with Byzantium of any apostles. So they mostly do deal Saint Timothy's, I mean Blessed Timothy's canons mostly deal with baptisms. And there is Theophilus of Alexandria, who now was an opponent of no less than Saint John Chrysostom. So he has an interesting canon that deals with elections and holy ranks. And then we have Saint Cyril of Alexandria, 5 canons, 5th century, and then we have Saint Gennadius of Constantinople, also 5th century. And then we have Saint Teresius, who was with Saint Irene, who restored orthodoxy. So altogether, there are around 800 canons that we just covered. All right, so I hope it was helpful. I really encourage you to put your hands on your sources of canon and start making yourself familiar. All right, have fun. Thank you very much.